On this episode of the podcast, we talk about some of the biggest hurdles that Matt has had to overcome as a video business owner, including addiction and feeling alone. We also talk about the importance of vision for your business, how to avoid jealousy and imposter syndrome, but instead cultivate community and celebrate each other. What is up, my friend? Hey, welcome to the Grow Your Video Business podcast. My name is Ryan Coral from Studio Sherpas. This is a show where I talk about how to grow your video business without burning out, and we cover things like how to get paid what you're worth, how to be more productive without sacrificing creativity, how to work with the right clients, and a whole lot more. If this sounds like you, then you are in the right place. Man, today I am super honored to have Matt Davis, who helped launch Studio Sherpas back in the day. He is back on the show with me today, co-hosting another episode, so it's super fun. I seriously am so proud of Matt for his honesty and vulnerability in this interview. We have so much to learn from Matt, and I'm really glad that you're tuning in. This is a real, raw and candid conversation. So if you didn't think that we talked about real stuff before, well, you're going to change your mind after this episode. So let's grab a word from our sponsor, and then we will jump into this week's episode. If there was one thing that could have ended my business 17 years ago, it would be because of the numbers. I hate accounting, taxes, W-9s, W-2s, WD-40s. Spreadsheets, all of that stuff. And I hate it mostly because I'm afraid of it. I'm just not great with numbers. If this sounds familiar, or if you're so new in your business that it's not even on your radar yet, you need Core Group. Core Group can help you create financial systems and tax strategies that you need so you can grow profitably, and they've been doing this for over 20 years. They become an extension of your team so that you can stay in your lane of expertise and then lean on them to help guide you along the way. For me, having a team of experts in my corner to help keep track of our books and just to make sure that we're budgeting for taxes appropriately, to have an actual strategy for our taxes and our accounting is priceless. And it allows me to sleep easier at night, knowing that I don't have to be an expert in that arena. If you want to avoid surprises in your video business, and you want experienced help building a plan for the future that you want, both professionally and personally, head over to studiosherpas.com/core for more information. And when you're ready to set up a free consult with them, make sure to mention Studio Sherpas for a special discount too. Got your back. Get more out of your accountant. Go to studiosherpas.com/core. What is up, friends? Welcome. Actually, I should have you do this introduction. What's up, friends? Welcome.
I'm back.
Welcome to this episode, this special edition episode of the show. My guest today is none other than the founder of both Harvest Filmworks and Lifestage Films and co-founder of Studio Sherpas, Mr. Matt Davis. Welcome back to the show, dude.
Thanks, man. I love it. I wish you would do this more. Thanks for having me.
It's I should have looked, but the last episode recorded was a long time ago.
Well, I feel like the last one we recorded was when we told everyone that we were divorcing.
Yes. There's many tears, much gnashing of teeth. But
it was fun, man. That was a fun. And we're joking, everyone that's listening. We are best buds, and we wanted to keep it that way. So that was I don't know, 3 years ago.
It was a long time ago. Well,
yeah.
Let's I would love to just jump right in, and could you just share your biggest sin with everybody?
Yes, yeah. This morning.
What's your biggest struggle? No, I'm just kidding. I love opening with that, because really it's just that we can only go up from there. No, that's right. I did want to just say before we jump in and I start grilling you with all of my questions, I wanted to say thank you. Thank you again. And we've talked, recently, and Matt and I, you guys have heard the story if you've listened to the podcast for any amount of time, but Matt and I have been friends in the video industry for, gosh, I hate to say it, but over a decade ago is when we first met.
Yeah.
And we became fast friends. And fast forward to 2015, we were working on a job together, and we kind of came up with this idea to launch this thing called Studio Sherpas, where we would help videographers on the business side of growing a business. And so we did it. And obviously things changed for us both. And I think it was probably about 3 years ago that we kind of parted ways in this business. And I've been able to keep doing this. And I am so grateful for the long hours, the many, many, many conversations that you and I had brainstorming this thing, building it, creating it, and allowing it to be what it is today. So I just want to honor you and say thank you for helping build this thing that I still get to take part in, and it's just one of the greatest joys of my life.
Yeah, well, with that trip that we were on, you flew down to North Carolina, but then we drove for like 8 hours to the job that I needed you to help me with. And so we had a lot of time to brainstorm and think in my tiny car. We were very intimate in that car, driving up the mountains. And anyway, but we had both like been speaking at conferences and kind of helping people, and we always had the itch to like give back in ways, whether we know what we're talking about or we say, hey, we screwed up here, guys, don't do what we did. And those are like the best, those are the things I love to speak on the most, is like, hey, don't do what I did, do it this way, and how you can course correct and be humble enough to be like, oh man, that was stupid. But that trip, we were like, man, we just both had the itch, and I think we always have, just to help the industry, help other people. And we were like, how can we get, how can we talk to more people? And that's where Sherpas came from. And I want to throw back at you the fact that I don't think that we were able, we wouldn't have been able to start it on our own. Like, we needed each other, but man, the way that you've built it without me, you wouldn't have been able to do it with you, because you are in a better, kudos to you to have a business where you could, step away from that a little bit and focus on Sherpas, where I really wasn't able mentally to do that. So I remember, and I'll say this too, years ago, you were like, and I'm so glad you're still doing this, because you were like, I don't know if I want to do the podcast anymore. And I was like, I'll do them. I'll do them, please. Like, I'll do that part. And so I'm glad that you're still doing it, because if anyone's listening right now, still listening to you, they know how important this podcast is. So man, glad to be back.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's funny. Like, I remember that conversation and just feeling like, I think it's because I hadn't built out the community in a way where there was like regular interaction, and so it felt like so one-sided for the longest time. And then shortly thereafter, I think is when I hosted the Onward Summit, like the in-person event, and that to me was like so life-giving to actually meet people who had, really, they found us through the podcast and had been listening, and to actually meet them in person. That was like, oh my gosh, so this is real. It's not just like, me talking, interviewing or whatever with one person, but like there are people that are listening to this and it's impacting their business. So that was kind of a light bulb moment for me to realize, like, okay, like it might feel like it's just me hanging out with somebody or me doing a solo episode, but remembering that, oh yeah, no, there's people that are, there's a way to download these somewhere on the internet. You can listen to them, in your car or on your run or whatever. It's pretty crazy.
Well, there's a lesson there. There's a little tidbit of, golden nugget there for anyone that's just starting out too. It's like, I know even today, I've been in business. You started a little bit before, a couple years before me, but we're both seasoned vets here. We've weathered some storms here in the industry, but even today, sometimes I feel like if I post something on social media, like, oh, shucks, who's going to listen? Who's going to see this? Who's listening to me? Who's watching this? And you would be very surprised, like just, be in the habit of putting stuff out there, whether you think it's 5 or whether it's really 500 people, will make an impact. If you don't do anything, nothing's going to happen. But if you post something and one person sees it, it might be that connection that gets you noticed somewhere where you need to be noticed.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Well, tell us, you've got these 2 brands. What are you really excited about right now in your business?
Well, I had a business plan when I started in 2007, and that year, I had a business coach that kind of helped me.
Reggie,
yeah, Reggie, and I saw him the other day.
That's
actually.
awesome.
Yeah, and he's still doing the thing, and he's doing great. And anyway, I had this plan when I first started doing weddings. Is when I, started doing video. And in my business plan, I said, if I'm going to do this for 10 years, so 2017, I had this stake in the ground of like, I'm going to be done with weddings. By this point, I'm going to step away from it, and it's going to be working on its own. Like, why build something just to quit it? Like, it'll be on its own. But life happened. Lots of things went sideways in my life, and I can chat about that. But regardless, I'm still doing weddings to this day. So I have a separate brand. Lifestage Films is luxury destination high-end weddings, and then Harvest Filmworks was separated to attract companies, organizations, brands, and things like that, for the obvious reason of those 2 clientele, they don't need to be seeing each other and hanging out on the same website. 2 separate missions and purposes. But going back and seeing that I was supposed to stop filming weddings in 2017, I'm still super excited about filming them. And it's really because of COVID, and all the things that changed in my business. I did have, you could say that I was living the dream for a little bit. I had the studio, I had the employees and the editors and the manager, like the social media person. Like, I really was doing what I wanted to be doing. I was sitting in the seat of director and running things and making and leading. But everything, things happen and things change, and especially not being able to afford everyone when things go crashing down. I'm still shooting weddings, but I'm able to do the ones, like, I don't do as many as I used to, but that helps my heart. Like, it helps me appreciate the ones that I do go to, and the people that, like, I'm really just doing referrals only for that. Because I'm at that point where, like, that's what I want, 10 to 15 weddings a year. And then the rest is my focus on Harvest. And so the way I cut my teeth in weddings, the way I'm excited about Harvest is how I'm able to translate those skills that I learned in weddings to, like, helping companies in ways that I'm comfortable with. I used to get very jealous of things that I saw out there, of just people doing awesome, rad things that, oh man, they're shooting for Nike. Oh, they're filming at the Super Bowl. And I'm like, I would used to get, like, kind of down about that, because, oh no, I'm not there. But man, I'm where I need to be. Like, I love the work that I get to do, and I'm making money, I'm making a profit, and I love what I do with a camera in my hand and the people that I surround myself with. And at the end of the day, that helps me have a fire, for doing this still, and not be so jealous about bigger things that other people are doing. Because there was a time a couple of years ago with Harvest, I was like, well, what's the point? What all these people are doing. And I'm talking about when I was with Sherpas, like when I was doing what you and I were doing together, and we're interviewing all these people, and we're talking, with people, and I'm like, well, shoot, they're doing huge things. And what, I don't have anything to, I can't say anything to compete with that, I guess, so to speak. And I learned through the last couple of years that, man, just be content with what you're creating. And if you love that, I get to wake up and do this and get paid to do it. And I really don't have to worry about what everyone else is doing. So that's what I'm excited about, to answer your question. Just staying in my lane, staying in my lane. Just, this is what I'm doing. This is my niche. This is what I'm focused on.
Dude, it's super powerful. I mean, it's funny when we think about, a decade ago, these conferences that we're going to, we're friends with so many other wedding filmmakers, and then that group of people started expanding their businesses because they either didn't like wedding filmmaking or they just got other opportunities that landed in their lap. And then to see how their businesses grew and to see like you're talking about Super Bowl and, all these like really cool opportunities, it was very easy because these were our peers. And to see them getting these successes that, both you and I shared. I remember you getting all these like WEVA Creative Excellence Awards. I think at the first event we went to, and me just being like, oh, like I want one of those or 7 of them. But the crazy thing is in this, the idea of being content with where you're at, it's definitely easier said than done. But I find it's so much more true the longer I'm in business, realizing that the clients that hire us, they love us. Not every single one, but the clients that we really enjoy working with, we have such a large database of clients that really, really like working with us. And they have budgets that they could literally afford anybody that they want to. Any of our peers who are doing, amazing work. And so I think the challenge for all of us is to be able to come back to that place of like, I always want to strive to be better. I'm hungry. I want our work to be better. I want our client experience to be better. I want our, delivery process to be better. I want to book clients quicker. Right. I want to deliver stuff faster. There's so many parts that I always want us to be improving on. But I don't want to get down on myself or my team and just be like, man, like, look at our stuff compared to, this studio or whatever. It's like, it pales in comparison. But what we forget is that at some point there's the point of diminishing return where your stuff could look as good as that studio's, but it doesn't need to. The client doesn't need it to look that good. People seeing it and it having the impact that it needs to have on those people, it doesn't necessarily need to look at that like incredible production level. I think our work is really good. I look at our stuff and there's some pieces where I'm like, I guess it's fine. I wish it was better. And sometimes I'm almost like, oh, like that was the lighting we did for that interview. And then I'm just like waiting for the client to be like, what the heck? But the client is like, oh, that's great. And I'm like, oh, okay. But if I shared it with my peers, there might be feedback of like, dude, like, why'd you put the shotgun mic there? Or why didn't you, add another light? And then all those questions of like imposter syndrome and, confidence just being like, oh gosh, like I am the worst. I shouldn't be doing this. But it's not true. I think you just bring up such a good point that all of us can relate to feeling not good enough. We don't have what it takes, even though we're doing the work and people are paying us money. And if we look at our stuff 6 months ago or a year ago, it's way better than what it was. So there are these soundtracks that we're listening to that just aren't true. So thank you. Thanks for bringing that up. I think it's really powerful.
Well, that's a mature thing to be doing, Ryan. With anything in life, oh man, if you're working out, which I'm not, I should be doing more of, like, oh man, I did this last week. I need to up my reps, or I need to do the mental exercise of being like, oh, I can do that better is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
So let me clarify too, because I was like itching to say something, but I was loving what you were saying is, I am the poster boy of imposter syndrome. That's a whole episode right here. However, I am terrified, and I think it's an unhealthy thing. You'll never find me going on these groups on Facebook and posting my work because I don't know those people. Those are not my peers. They don't know me. They don't know my heart. They don't know my story. But there's so many people, and so if you're listening, don't let people tear you down that don't know who you are. Like they can hide behind a keyboard all day long. But I do have a group of filmmakers and creatives and entrepreneurs, and Ryan, you do too. And what you're building with Sherpas is what I'm about to say is like I have people that know me. I have a small group, an intimate group of people that know my business, know Matt Davis, know the work that I'm capable of doing, but can also build me up in a healthy way. And so I don't have to post this stuff for my ego. On my wall over there, I don't think you can see it. There's three pictures back there, but I've had it on my wall for years. It says ego kills creativity. And that's happened to me. It has totally happened to me. And so if you have this ego of like, you know, I think both of us, hopefully I'm speaking for you. I shouldn't be, but for me, I've matured over the years in my business and as we all should be in life. But whenever I used to see people, my peers doing awesome things, like I mentioned a minute ago, Super Bowl stuff and getting this client and, oh, now they're shooting for Mountain Dew and Nike and Coca-Cola, whatever. Like, oh man, that's what I want to do. The first thing I used to do in my immaturity was to get jealous and to get, well, fine, I can do whatever. I can do that. If that agency would have found me first, I could have done that. Now with my group of people and friends, and you know, I've got, you know, like I said, there's probably 8 of us, 10 of us in this group. And Ryan, you're one of those people. Like, building relationships in this industry, it does take guts to be able to reach out to people and say, hey, what could I have that relationship with you, and we've always had that, where I can be like, hey, Ryan, take a look at this. Yeah. You're not going to sugarcoat it, but you're also not going to bash me to the point of hurting my feelings in a way that's going to make me retire from filmmaking. You know, you're not going to do that. You're going to say, yeah, you should have done, you know, you should have covered up that lav mic, you know? Yeah. But I say all that because I do have people that are doing awesome things now, and I don't have to be jealous of them. I can say, oh my gosh, Chris, how did you do that? Like, tell me how you did this. Like, how did you nail that client? Like, I need to know this, because there's plenty of work to go around, but I didn't used to feel that way, you know? And so instead of getting jealous, I got friends that are doing amazing things. And now I can be like, oh my gosh, I am so proud of you. How did you do it? And I'm glad that I'm mature enough. You know, I've got a long way to go, but 10 years ago, I wouldn't have been saying the same thing.
Yeah, dude, it's super, super true. Yeah, the whole trust thing is so important, in having people that people that have your best interest in mind, right?
There you go. Yep.
Me being able to give you honest feedback, like, yeah, it's good. I forgot when you brought up lav mic.
Yeah. It was a long time ago, man.
But you know, stuff like that, it's like, oh shoot, you know, and I feel like I just remember some of those old forums that we were a part of, and just the unhealthy, you know, I think for so many of us, we're full of insecurities, and I think so much of you know, all of that stuff probably came out of insecurities and people just like wanting to feel better about themselves and not feel bad that they didn't get that client and all that stuff. So I think that's good. What I'm trying to cultivate is this exactly what you're saying, this idea of abundance. There's so much work out there. There's so much opportunity to improve. And, you know, me 10 years ago, kind of at this fork in the road of like, hey, I could continue to like really refine my filmmaking abilities and creativity, or my business running skills, and like what is going to be what lines up with me and my family better and more. And not that I want either to regress or anything like that, but again, it goes back to this idea of diminishing return. There was a point of diminishing return where I felt like I could keep getting better as a filmmaker, but I don't think that's going to help me make more money. I think that, and people might just be like, oh, look, you're not even booking any, you know, clients at this level, or nobody even has ever heard of these clients. But like, when my clients are paying me $10,000 a job, or $50,000, or, you know, over $100,000 a job, I don't care if anybody's heard of them, right? And it goes to your thought on, if people don't know you, what your goals are and what you're all about, it's real easy to be like, oh, that's done. That's like, you know, why are you wasting your time over there? And it's not good. Yeah. And like, well, I mean, you weren't a part of the creative brief or the workshop, and like you don't even really know like what the goal was here. So for you to be speaking, you know, at that level. So anyway, I say all of that to say, approaching life, approaching this work, approaching running a business with a mindset of abundance, knowing that there's so much work out there, there's so much opportunity, and then there are also other people that feel like that, is such a better place to be in, such a healthier place to be in, than feeling like, oh, I'm not going to share anything, I'm not going to ask anything, right. I'm not going to try to help other people be better or to improve because I want to take over the world. And not even take over the world, I want to take over this corner of the market where I live, which is there's so much more to life and
Yeah.
than that.
I'm going to say something that might sound boring, but to me, again, I don't care. I really don't, because I'm making money, I'm making a profit, and I get to hang out with my family a lot more than I used to.
Yeah.
And there's not a double-edged sword. How do you say it? There's two ways of looking at this. Like for my harvest work, a good lesson here that I learned from someone else is to have little things you're good at. So for instance, I'm really good at filming brand films for attorneys. That's a little sub industry that I did it a couple times and I was like, oh, I've got a template now. I've got a system. Just like, as a business owner, you should always be thinking systems and how do I replicate this and that. To a lot of people, that doesn't sound glamorous at all. But again, think about what you think about. Think about an attorney video that you would see on TV, a commercial. It's terrible. It's cheesy. It's in your face. It's brash. And I went through divorce. And so I've got a history with attorneys and how there's bad ones and good ones. And so when I'm filming this, when I've got a camera in my hand, when I'm in the director's seat, changing the game for attorney films for websites, I'm putting heart into it instead of trying to make money. And so I love it because there are people that are hurting out there that do need an attorney, that are going through something in life that an attorney can help them. And so, no, I don't do the TV commercials where it's like, if you've been injured, blah, blah, blah. That's not what I'm doing. But what I am doing is helping attorneys that really do care about people. And they also are paying me $20,000 to make a film for them that's really super good and awesome. And so I love it. They love it. We're all making money. They're making money. And I get to see my family a lot more than me. And they like me because I'm doing work that I love to do. And I'm not stressed out about it. So might not sound glamorous to some people. And same thing with I have a little niche for architects and then high-end corporate builders. You just do it once and you do it twice. You're like, oh man, I can make a little website for this. And now you're the expert. And so stuff like that doesn't sound glamorous, but I enjoy doing it. And so when I say that there's two ways of looking at it, having a template, having a system is what we all should be doing. But then someone might say, well, Matt, you're not challenging yourself. Oh, you're doing the easy thing. Like, yeah, you know how to do it. There's nothing wrong with doing something you're really good at doing. And I am challenging myself because I do approach things as like, well, how can I do this a little differently this time? And Ryan, what you just said, like, well, how can I change the lighting this time? Like, I didn't like it that time. Well, I'm not going to do it the same way. You can always be growing and learning from podcasts like this. But having a niche and having something that you're really good at is not a bad thing. And it makes life a lot easier. So,
yeah, dude, I love that. I love, when you're talking about like a specific niche that might not seem super sexy. It's just like, oh gosh, like really, that's the kind of video work that you do. What's most important in all of this, number one, that you like the work that you're doing, but what's more important than that is that you like the life that you're leading. And if you can build your business so that it supports the life that you want to lead, that's the most important thing. So if you found a niche, whether it's wedding films or lawyer films or working with architects or whatever, and you're like, man, we found something that works here. And instead of having to grind 60 hours a week or more to try to take every job or to get that perfect shot, and it's just going to take us, instead of 15 minutes to get the perfect shot, it's going to take us 4 hours. But man, this is going to be like director Hollywood cinema quality. It's like, seriously? Like, you're doing this for a dentist. Like, dentist doesn't need that. Like, maybe for your reel because you're trying to get into Hollywood or you have other aspirations. But if you're trying to build a business that works, that can work without you, that can support your family, help you live out some of your dreams, yeah, you do the thing that like makes the most sense, and you want to enjoy it. If you don't enjoy the clients that you're working with and the projects that you're working on, then like you have to figure out like, okay, well, what is that? Like, what industry is that, or what niche is that? And you got to do some of the hard work there about thinking about like, what is it that I really want?
Well, sometimes things happen like COVID. Sometimes things happen where it scares the crap out of you. I was censoring myself there. I it's like, when you work weddings, and that's where you put all your eggs, and then the industry goes there's no events. What are you going to do? And so I am thankful that I did have other things happening. However, I put my ego aside last year. When things went to crap, I mean, you have to pivot. You have to learn. I've got a family, I've got kids, and I do have to make a living. So I pivoted, and a lot of people did. You have to, and you can't be down in the dumps, and you can't be. But you know what? I freaked out because I did have a lot of weddings on the books. I did, and so it made me realize that I needed to hustle a little bit more in other areas. And do some things, sometimes you have to do things you don't really want to do. But you know what? I was able to take care of my family last year by focusing on live streaming. All these companies needed video because no one's in person. And I really wasn't an expert on it. I really wasn't. I was, never really had to do it that much. But you know what I did? I learned. And I was able to pay the bills and make profits. And I'm still doing it. And I learned through the last couple of years of being in business, like, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Like, I cannot rely on one industry, and I'm not gonna shoot weddings forever. I'm not gonna be. No offense to anyone out there, I'm not gonna be the old guy showing up to weddings. There's a time limit, a time stamp on what I'm doing for events, and my kids are growing up. But what I can do is weekday work and travel during the week and help companies, and I can go out there and find that stuff anytime I want, and that put a fire under me to like do more of that, because they're everywhere. Companies need video. What a time to be alive, to be a filmmaker. I mean, it's great.
It is. I was recording an intro for a podcast episode yesterday, and inside of the Facebook group, I just asked people share your wins of the week, and it's so cool. I mean, I remember probably 2 months ago sharing the same thing, and people sharing like, oh my gosh, we just booked the biggest job ever, and we're booking this thing, and we've got $20,000, $50,000 this week. One of our guys posted he closed over $100,000 in business, and one of my things I got super excited about on Monday, I think it was, I had 5 different conversations, all totaling over $100,000 in projects that were like 80% to close, like people that are like new client. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. Like, I feel like, to your point, it's a good time to have a video business, because everybody's kind of feeling like, hey, you know what? We haven't done any marketing. We haven't done any really like in the past year. It's time. We've got some money. Like, let's do this. So it's super encouraging. So tell me, I would love to know just like what, as you reflect on the past few years, what's one of the biggest accomplishments that you're really proud of?
Oh man. Yeah. Okay. This is personal. But anyone listening knows that anything personal affects your business life and the life of your business and the ups and downs of being a business owner.
I will say, I don't know if everybody knows that, Matt. So just a quick preface, but you and I do.
That's true. I see I thought you were joking there, but yeah, if you haven't gone through something, you will. I don't mind saying this. I've gone through a lot of like I mentioned, divorce and struggles with addiction. Struggles with things that I never really thought would come up and bite me. But when you don't really know how to handle COVID stuff or going through ups and downs of business, sometimes if you let that get the best of you, you have to find your way out of it. And I guess I'd say I'm proud of finding my way out of it, not wallowing in the bottom and getting back up. Now there was a season, and Ryan, again, you're one of my best friends. No bias here. Being on, like we do go way back, and so you have known those highs and lows. But a lot of the times I hid it from you too, because you don't want, especially in this industry, like, oh, I've got it all together, imposter syndrome. Like, oh yeah, I've got this, I've got this thing figured out, and so that can wear you down when you try to act like somebody you're not for a really long time. And so for me, I was going through some personal stuff, and I just didn't want anyone to know, and I chose to cope with that in unhealthy ways. And luckily I recognized that. Now I wouldn't say that this is me being accountable to friends that are listening in Sherpas. I'm friends with a lot of you guys, and people that might not know me, I'm friends with you now, because this is a circle of trust here. But no, I'm glad that I picked myself up and I had some people to help me. But never believe me if I ever said like, oh, I've got this all figured out. I'm better now. Like, it's going to be a lifelong struggle to always and to always know that life's not always going to be good. But how are you going to be prepared, and how are you going to handle that when it comes your way? So if you haven't, and say you're just starting out in business, and say your life and you're 39 and you can't think of anything that's gone sideways in your life, that's awesome. Really good. That's awesome. But what are you going to do when something happens? And so for me, I got really complacent in my business. Speaking of systems and people and having employees, I will admit, and it sucks to even hear me say this out loud, because I spoke on this. I'm a business coach that preaches like leading instead of managing, but when I was like going through personal stuff, I didn't recognize myself as a leader. I just managed, and I told people what to do. And I said, do this. This is how we do it here at Lifestage and Harvest. I stopped leading. I stopped growing. And I would probably say I stopped caring. Now, the flip side of that is I did have systems and processes and clients and referrals in place. But so what? If you don't keep growing, and if you don't cultivate relationships, and if you don't take care of your own people. Luckily, it didn't get to the point for me where I had to say like people just left and quit, because COVID did happen. Now I had to pivot. I couldn't afford people. So yeah, I was like, all right. So I went the freelance route, which I could talk all day on that too, because it's been great for, there's a reason to have employees, and then there's a reason to have subcontractors and ways to do a business that way. And I've seen both, and it's been successful both ways. But for me, making amends, so to speak, of like what I used to do for years in my business of just coasting along, didn't serve my clients well, and didn't serve my family well, didn't serve my employees well that I was trusted to take care of. I would say I let my ego get in the way. I was like, oh, we've got this. Just do what we've been doing. And that doesn't work. You got to evolve. You've got to pivot, just like we've all had to do in the last couple of years. I'm just glad that I figured that out and realized that, and I'm able to verbalize that to you guys, and because I don't ever want to go back there. So I've got struggles like everyone else, and I just do know that it can affect creativity. And there is a time to take care of yourself and your heart. But if you're trying to stay in business for any long period of time and make a business and a life out of it, you've got to know how to pivot and handle those obstacles and what's the word? Adversities. There you go.
Dude, I love it. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. That's, I know your story, so
and it's not pretty. It's messy.
Yeah, super messy. But
thanks. You don't have to go. Yeah.
No, I'm talking like real No, but what's beautiful in your story, and I remember like one of the last videos I shared with you, just kind of talking about how the power in your story is that there's a lot of freedom in that for people to think like, okay, maybe I'm not the only one who's ever felt like this, or I'm not the only one who feels stuck, or I'm on the ground and I need to get off the ground. So I love that there is this redemption in your story, that you're still moving forward, that you're moving onward, if you will.
Yeah, nice.
But
I like it.
in the sharing of that and in the journey, the things that you've put into practice today, surrounding yourself with people and whatnot, helping you, really become the man that you want to be, and the husband and the dad that you want to be, and the business owner that you want to be. Like, those are all super, super important parts of how you're able to, be here sharing this stuff today, broken, but we all are, right? Just
Yeah.
in different ways. So I'm curious if you would have any advice for somebody that might be in a similar situation where they come across like having to say like, oh yeah, things are great now, business is good, like I got this, like I'm gonna pull up my bootstraps, or whatever you say, pull myself up by my bootstraps. We're fine, like totally got this. But internally, everything is just like, oh my gosh, I'm crushed. The weight that I'm carrying, it's too much. I don't know where to go, where to turn. Nobody's going to understand me or believe me, or I don't know how to get out of this mess. What would your advice be for somebody that's in that kind of a situation?
This sounds super cliche, but it's what I need to hear right now. I'm trying to think of what I need to hear right now, and it's that you can't do this alone. The longest time at the beginning, I tried to do it on my own. Oh, I'm the best. I've got this. I'm way better at my competition. But when you actually become friends and have relationships with people around you in your area, in your region, and get on a deeper level, other than they do what I do, and I need to book more business than they have, is super unhealthy. And just the fact that I can lean on local competition, they're my friends, and I can borrow gear, and I can throw ideas off of Brian and Adam, Kevin, Luke. These are real people that I'm shouting out, that I'm like, I need those people, and they're not my competition, because we're all thriving. But I'll take it a step further. And Ryan, if I can I get a little bit more specific on
whatever
the addiction part? Because I feel like I might be speaking to somebody out there in the business world as an entrepreneur. Just to be very candid, for me, alcohol is everywhere. You can't watch TV, you can't walk down the street, you can't drive down the street, you can't network, you can't go to events, you can't celebrate without this thing. Now, some people don't need it. Some people can get by without it. Some people can have 2 drinks. Some people can't. And for me, I believed the lie that to be a successful business owner, it's almost like the Mad Men thing. Watching Mad Men, what do you think of? You think of cigars and bourbon. They're just sitting there talking. There's a cloud of smoke. They're successful. They're powerful, but there's some bourbon. There's always that glass of, whatever. And so just if someone's listening, for me, alcohol stole from me. So I really don't mind speaking to all this, because it stole from my business. It stole from my life. And I will tell you right now, my family's happier that I realized that. My clients, whether they realize it or not, are happier about that. I'm happier. I actually wake up driven and with rest and energy and not complacent. And so if you're going through a period where you're like struggling and you're on, you feel like you're on an island, don't do what I did and think, oh, what a crappy day. I'm just going to pour me a glass or 2 or 3. Oh, I got to go network. Oh man, there's an open bar, a free bar. Like, don't feel like you have to fit in with that crowd. And I feel like I'm like my mom right now, telling me like what to do. But I'm just saying, like, if that's something that, if you're struggling internally, alcohol's not the answer. And for me, I was like, oh, if I'm going to be successful at networking events, oh, if I'm going to go to the party, I've got to be the life of it. And so for me, I just realized alcohol stole from me. It was never giving to my business. It was never giving to my life. And if you're going to try to grow a business, and I'm speaking on what I know personally, there was no room for it anymore in my life. And I can tell you, my work's better, my clarity, clarity is a big word for me right now. Just having clarity of what I want out of life, or what I want out of my business. And there's not one good thing I can say that alcohol served my business. Does that make sense? Like, there's not anything that I can say that grew my business in regards to alcohol. And if it works for you, again, that's not, everyone's different. But for me, I'm telling you right now, like, it got a hold of me to the point where my business suffered, my life suffered, and that's not what I was trying to grow. So that's all I got there.
I think sort of what you're saying is that when we're in a spot where we're feeling stuck, there are choices and decisions that we can make that can move us closer to getting that clarity and that understanding of, like, what is it that I actually need? And then there are things that cloud that process and make it take us way longer to get to that spot where it's like, oh, this is what I needed the whole time, or this is what I didn't need, or whatever. So I think that's great. Sage advice. I liked how you were totally honest with me the last time we talked. You're like, dude, next time we're together, like, I'm just not going to have anything to drink. And I said, well, I'm going to pour bourbon on your head. Then what are you going to do? Just kidding. I didn't say that. Probably wouldn't do that.
Well, and it's to the point now where it's not like I'm resentful about it. It's not like I'm like, oh man, everyone else gets to do it. I just know that Matt Davis, it doesn't work. Yeah. It does not serve me. It doesn't serve my life. It doesn't. Yeah. And I like what my life looks like now without it. I like what my bank account looks like without it. Business and personal, but
thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Well, we're getting close to winding down, but before we do, I want to know, like, what's like this one thing that I appreciated about you so much. I guess still appreciate, but when I remember, like, us first meeting, kind of having this bromance of, like, dude, everything that Matt's doing in his business is either stuff that we're doing or stuff that I want to do. So there was just so much, like, synergy and excitement. Anytime that we would hop on we used to not have video conferencing. I don't know if you remember that. But back when we first, met each other, we had to, like, call each other on the phone. I think a landline, maybe. No, I'm just kidding. And so I would just I loved hearing you talk about the processes that you're putting in place and the sales scripts that you were using on the phone, and all these things, and your conversations with Reggie. I'm always like, man, this is like gold. This is like, I love all of this stuff. And then, coming up with a 10-year plan and, your 90-day plan and all of that stuff, I think was so good and so motivating for me. So my question is, like, as you look at the next, like, 3 years of your business, like, what are some of your hopes?
God, man, good question. Give me a second. To be very honest, Amanda and I, my wife, we've just talked about weddings, and I still love doing them. Like you mentioned, a lot of people have kind of like, oh, I'm over weddings. I've been there and I've done that. For me, I still love doing it. But there is a stigma there for me with what I just said. I'm going to these events, and it's, but so I'm bringing my family with me. I'm going to it. We're filming a wedding this weekend in Kiowa Island, South Carolina, super luxurious private island, and I'm bringing my family, and we're going to have a good time. And so for me, like, weddings are still going to serve us, but it's going to be family vacations. It's going to be like, hey, this is going to be fun money. This is going to be gravy. So the next couple of years, weddings, if they come, great. I still love them. If you hire me, I'm going to enjoy being there, but I'm not going to rely on them. So that's my plan for Lifestage. It'll still be there, but for me, I've never had the itch to be, I've just never had the desire in my heart to be like a Hollywood filmmaker or a documentary filmmaker. Like, some people that's their drive, and that's just not mine. So for me, there's a passion in my heart to serve the families that I've already served. So I'm still trying to figure out whether it be family biographies and legacy films. Again, that doesn't sound glamorous to some people, but I've done 3 or 4 of them now, upwards of $20,000. I'm just saying that number because it doesn't seem feasible to some. But families that I serve in the wedding industry, in the community, they still have stories to tell. And those stories are addictive to me. It is addicting to be able to serve people, see tears, feel laughter, feel all these things, and I'm getting to give them something that's going to last for generations. That's my heart. So that's where I'm going with Lifestage, Harvest, and all the things that I can do for brands and companies. I'm soaking. I'm a student again. Right now, all I can say is I'm soaking everything up I can again. And I didn't used to be that way a couple years ago. I had the mentality of I've got everything figured out. I've learned everything I need to know. I know what I'm doing. So right now I'm learning new things. I'm learning things that my camera can do that I didn't really know it could do. And I'm like, oh, this is fun. Learning new tricks of the trade, that things are evolving every day, social media wise, and it's fun. So I'm doing that. I'm focused on that. So I'm going back to school is what I probably could say in the next year or two. I'm just learning how to be a better entrepreneur and filmmaker. I've got a good team of subcontractors. So I've got people, when work is there, they get paid well. We all get paid well. But the overhead of a studio and employees, I'm not doing that right now. Some people can. Some people, it's thriving for them. That's not where I need to be right now. So, but I also can't do this by myself. So for those solopreneurs out there, find people that can come along that are better than you at things, and that's where my heart's going right now. And so building up Harvest, I am 38. I'm going to be going into my 40s soon. And what I've told myself on paper is my 40s will be things that are going to challenge me. Projects that are right now don't seem feasible to me, but if I look back in 5 or 7 years, that I'll be super proud of. I don't know what that looks like, Ryan, but I know that's. I want to grow and work my heart and work my skills out in a way that I just haven't done yet. I still want to do film and video, but I don't know exactly what that looks like in 5 years.
Yeah, I think it's funny too to look back at our businesses, 5, 7, 8 years ago. Both of us had, multiple employees. I think at one point we had like 8 or 9 employees. You had 6 or 7, or I don't know. I definitely
6,
had more than you though.
You did.
Just kidding. But
you have a really cool space right now. Yeah.
Through all of the challenges that we face, but also like as business owners and saying like, I don't need that position. That shouldn't, that doesn't make sense financially. It doesn't make sense for the business model and whatever. And today we're in a much different spot. We're much leaner than we've probably ever been, and partnering with more contractors, doing more work, being more profitable. It's great. I'm like, how are we, we're paying more for contractors because contractors typically just charge more than an employee does, but we're actually more profitable. So
I want to interrupt
question?
you real
Yes,
quick.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you. That is a huge point. And if I can make it in 30 seconds, I have less overhead. I used to think I was successful when I had so many employees in this awesome space downtown, and look at us. But I was paying everything out before I could pay myself. And now I can pay myself, and we're making a profit because it's built into the budget. Like, I know how much is going out, and I know how much profit I want to make. And if I get this job, I know exactly what's going to go in my pocket. And it didn't used to be that way because I used to have to pay everything else out, taxes, rent, salaries. And then, Matt Davis is way down here on the totem pole. So I was making a ton of money, but it was going right out the door. So there's a right and a wrong way to do it. So I learned the hard way.
Yeah. But as you're thinking about 3 years from now, like what is the perfect structure of the business? because, and I will just preface this with like, I remember back in the day, early on in my business, I'm like, well, I'm definitely not going to be shooting weddings when I'm, 50 or 60 years old. My back's going to go out, blah, blah, blah. So I want this business to be built in a way. So I'm just curious, like, as you're, thinking about what does the future look like with the makeup and the buildup of the business?
During the middle of COVID, there was a time, maybe a couple of weeks, where I was like, maybe I should get a job. Maybe I should think about doing something else. But it was because I had that thought that I realized my heart is in video. My heart is in storytelling. I would be so miserable working for someone else and doing something that's not creative like I've been doing for the decade and a half. So I love what I do, and I'm going to keep doing it. What it looks like is serving companies. I love traveling. Traveling has been a part of my mission for my business, being able to see places and do things. And so relationships, traveling, and then cultivating, a good solid team of people. For instance, when I mentioned, competition, what my business looks like in 3 years is me being able to call up Kevin or Chris Davis and be like, hey, because he is the lighting guy. I am not a lighting guy. But being able to call up on these people and be like, hey, are you busy? No, I need some work. Like having that synergy of always having work going around, them being able to call me up, Matt, I need a DP. Yeah, I'm there for you. Hey, Matt, I need a director. I need you to talk to the clients. I would love to. I'm not busy. That is how I feel like my business is going to be sustained. Not only learning from other people, but also just always doing work that I want to be doing and not have to, not having to do work that I have to do, the low-hanging fruit that you feel like you have to do to just pay the bills. I've been there and I've done that, and I never want to go back to that. So always being able to be in a position with people around me where we can do awesome, huge projects. And I mentioned huge. It doesn't have to be money-wise huge. All of us should be making a profit. But doing things that I love and traveling and being able to see my family at the end of the week or at the end of the day. Yeah. Weddings. I won't be doing weddings in 5 years, I don't think. My kids will be graduating. Penelope will be. So, got other plans.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. How can people keep up with what you got going on? Where should they be able to see your work? And
we've got a ton of recent work on Lifestage Films, one word, Instagram, Facebook, lifestagefilms.com, harvestfilmworks.com, and then Harvest Filmworks, Instagram and Facebook. Got a couple recent things on Harvest. I'm, super slack with one thing and really good at one other social media thing. I got to find a balance of doing great with the other brand, but you can check all that work out. We're posting stuff on the regular, definitely with what we're traveling and doing and going seeing places on Lifestage Films. That's about it for where you can find our work and our shenanigans.
Love it. Dude, thanks for being vulnerable, sharing your story. And what I love about your story is that you're even admitting, like, listen, I haven't arrived. I'm not there yet. There's more work to do on myself. Obviously more work to do in the business and all of that. But that's super freeing for so many of us to just realize, like, okay, like, I don't have to have everything together. My new favorite phrase is momentum is messy. So if you're trying to move and shake things up and do try stuff, it's going to be messy. But like the only way that you're going to be able to see if it's something that you love or something you want to do or is to try it. So love that you're doing it. Love that you're doing the hard work of working on yourself. And I mean, I feel like you've come a million miles, and love that you're able to come on and share with us today.
Thanks, brother. Love you, man.
Yeah. Love you. Appreciate you. I'll give you the last word here. How do you want to leave us today?
When you said momentum is messy, I feel like I'm getting old here, but I have a son. He's 8, and just being able to teach him things that, to be honest, I have a blended family. So I'm remarried. Super thankful, and it's a blessing, such a blessing to have a wife that supports me and encourages me. But also, I've got this new family that it's an awesome thing. But AJ, my son, I'm his dad. Like I'm it. Like I'm the father figure. And so I have 2 girls of my own. So being able to have a son now and teaching him things that no one else has ever really taught him. So this momentum is messy. Like we're learning, I'm his basketball coach at the YMCA, and we're learning soccer, and we're learning how to not get hurt when a football is thrown at your face and, catch it, whatever. But things that he would cry about it. And, he's going to hate me one day for listening to this later, but he'd cry and he'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. He'd be super afraid. And now he's really good at sports. Like I'm like really good. And I get to mention to him all the time, do you remember when you were afraid to do that? Do you remember that you didn't want to pick up this ball because you said it was going to hurt? And so it's a silly analogy, but for me, it's like being able to do this in real life, on my personal life, and being able to hear me say that and apply it to my business, like things that I'm afraid of, the worst that can happen is me failing. But if I don't even try, it ain't going to get done. And I'm going to be sitting there just like investing. Like I invest in stuff. And, if you don't make the decision to invest and you look back a year later, like Bitcoin, $66,000. What? It's like, stuff like that can be applied to your business. And so momentum is messy. But you know what else is messy is not doing a dang thing, and being stuck in the same spot a couple years later. So don't be Matt.
Sage advice there. Don't be Matt.
Yeah.
Hashtag don't be. Dude, it's super fun. Thanks for, it was great to catch up. Great to get this time with you. Again, thanks for sharing your story with us.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. Don't forget to check the show notes for any links or references that we made on this episode. Merry Christmas. If you celebrate Christmas, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, because that's happening real soon. And next week is our final episode of the year. So make sure that you come back, as I'm going to share a little recap of this year and share some ways that you could consider growing your video business in 2022. Lots of twos there. Hey, I would love to hear from you. If you're watching this on YouTube or on Facebook, leave a comment and let me know what your big takeaway was from this episode. If you want to encourage Matt, feel free to reach out to him and just send him a note that says thanks. Also, remember that we have a free Facebook community where you can get to know other filmmakers and videographers. I can't say that word. Other people that do video for business and for money. You can get access to that community if you go to studiosherpas.com/community. I also want to let you know about a free workshop that I have. If you've ever struggled getting a client's budget, or you spend way too long in the proposal process wondering how much money they have, how much money they want to spend, you can avoid a lot of that frustration and a lot of those problems on a phone call or a Zoom call within the first 10 minutes of meeting a potential client, somebody that's inquiring about video work. You can use the formula. It's just this step-by-step formula for how we do these calls and how we end these calls with a really solid action plan, with a real understanding, and a lot of times, more times than not, an actual budget or budget range from the client, so that when we go to build out a proposal, if they're a right fit client, it is there's no surprises, and we're not spinning our wheels wondering, do they have this kind of money? So you can get access to that workshop if you go to studiosherpas.com/budget. You can also follow us on Instagram at Grow Your Video Business, and I am at Ryan Coral. Reach out if you need anything. In the meantime, Ryan at studiosherpas.com. How many more ways can you contact us? I don't know, but my phone number is, just kidding. Hope you have an amazing week. Again, really, really appreciate you listening to the show. Talk to you real soon. Goodbye for now.